Hey Theater Geeks, I'm Emily and welcome to Musical Mondays. Today's video kicks off my Tony Awards countdown. Now you might be thinking, it's only the beginning of April. How are we already in Tony Awards countdown mode? Well, all I have to say to you is we have a lot of ground to cover before Tony night. So from today until the Monday after the Tonys, all of my videos are going to be Tony Awards themed. This week, let's kick it off with the plays that are eligible for nomination at the 2015 Tony Awards. So first of all, there are 20 plays eligible for nomination at this year's Tony Awards. 11 of them are new plays and therefore eligible to be nominated for Best Play, and 9 are revivals and therefore eligible to be nominated for Best Revival of a Play. So since there are so many to cover and I want to keep this video relatively short, I'm just gonna give a really quick summary of what the play is about and when it started previews, when it opened, and if it is closed yet. All right, let's get started. Let's get the ball rolling with new plays. First up, Airline Highway. Airline Highway is a dark comedy that takes place in the parking lot of a once glamorous motel in New Orleans' Airline Highway. A collection of strippers, prostitutes, and philosophers gather to give a pre-death funeral to Miss Ruby, who was a burlesque star in her day. Previews began on April 1st and it opens officially on April 23rd. Next up, The Audience. The Audience follows Queen Elizabeth II, played by Helen Mirren, throughout her time as queen through the lens of her private audiences with the prime ministers throughout her time as queen. Previews began on February 14th and it opened on March 8th. Constellations is a classic boy meets girl story told in a multiverse. This hyper-theatrical experience explores choice, destiny, and the infinite possibilities that result from meeting someone. It starred Jake Gyllenhaal and Ruth Wilson. Previews began December 16th, it opened January 3rd and closed March 15th. Next up, The Country House. The Country House follows Anna Patterson, played by Blythe Danner, as she hosts her family of creative types for a weekend in the Berkshires. Previews began on September 9th, it opened on October 2nd and closed November 23rd. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is a West End transplant and is based on a novel of the same title. An autistic teenager is accused of killing his neighbor's dog, so he sets out to solve the mystery of the dog's murder to clear his name. His detective work leads him to discoveries that change his life forever. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime won 7 awards at the 2013 Olivier's, including the Olivier for Best Play. Previews began on September 10th and it opened officially on October 5th. In Disgraced, a successful Muslim American lawyer and his artist wife host a dinner party in their Upper East Side apartment. What starts off as polite conversation escalates into something explosive and damaging to everyone's relationships. Previews began on September 27th, it opened on October 23rd, and closed March 1st. Fish in the Dark is a comedy written by and starring Larry David that focuses on characters dealing with a death in the family. It began previews on February 2nd and opened officially on March 5th. Next up, Hand to God. Jason is a shy student at the Christian Puppet Ministry in Cypress, Texas. One day, his once soft-spoken puppet Tyrone takes on a vulgar personality all its own. Previews for this show began on March 14th and it opened officially on April 7th. Living on Love follows celebrated opera diva Raquel DeAngelis, played by world-renowned soprano Renee Fleming. When her husband falls for the young woman he's hired to ghostwrite his autobiography, Raquel decides she needs her own autobiography, ghostwritten by a handsome young man. Hilarity ensues. Previews began on April 1st and it opens officially on April 20th. In the river, a couple goes on a weekend fishing trip in a remote cabin. The show, which starred Hugh Jackman, started previews on October 31st, opened November 16th, and closed February 8th. And last but not least for new plays, we have Wolf Hall Parts 1 and 2. This is the story of Thomas Cromwell, a courtier of King Henry VIII who is determined to climb up the political ladder. Part 1 focuses on Cromwell finding a way for Henry VIII to divorce Catherine of Aragon, thus winning his favor, and Part 2 focuses on Cromwell finding a way for Henry VIII to get rid of Anne Boleyn. It began previews on March 20th and will open officially on April 9th. All right, let's get on to revivals. First up, we have A Delicate Balance. A classic Albee family drama follows long-married couple Tobias and Agnes, played by John Lithgow and Glenn Close, as they host their 4-time divorcee daughter, good friends, and Agnes's alcoholic sister for the weekend. Previews began on October 20th, it opened November 20th, and closed February 22nd. The Elephant Man is based on the real life of Joseph Merrick, played by Bradley Cooper in this production. The play explores Merrick's life after he is retired from the Victorian-era freak show circuit and is taken into the care of a renowned doctor at London Hospital. The doctor is astounded by Merrick's intelligence and faith and decides to inaugurate him into London's high society. Previews began on November 7th, it opened December 7th, and closed on February 21st. Wendy Wasserstein's The Heidi Chronicles follows Heidi Holland, played by Elizabeth Moss, over 3 decades from high school to her career as an art historian, her life as a mother, and her various relationships over that time. This play also stars Jason Biggs and Bryce Pinkman. Previews began on February 22nd and it opened officially on March 19th. Next up, It's Only a Play. Featuring an all-star cast, this comedy follows playwright Peter Austin as he awaits reviews after opening night of his new play. The opening night cast featured Matthew Broderick, Nathan Lane, Stockard Channing, F. Murray Abraham, Micah Stock, Megan Mullally, and Rupert Grint. The current Broadway cast features Katie Finneran and T.R. Knight in the roles originated by Mullally and Grint. Previews began on August 28th and it opened officially on October 9th. Love Letters is about Andrew Makepeace Ladd III and Melissa Gardner, who have written love letters to each other over the past 50 years, beginning in the 2nd grade. Though they went on to live separate lives after grade school, they have stayed in touch and in love through their letters. This production began previews on September 13th, opened on September 18th, and closed December 14th. Tom Stoppard's The Real Thing follows Henry, a playwright whose wife Charlotte is starring in his new play about an unhappy marriage on the brink of failure. When Henry's affair with his friend Annie starts to rock his marriage, he realizes his writing may have hit a little too close to home. This production featured Ewan McGregor as Henry, Cynthia Nixon as Charlotte, and Maggie Gyllenhaal as Annie. Previews began on October 2nd, it opened October 30th, and closed January 4th. Next up, Skylight. On a bitterly cold London night, Kyra Hollis, played by Carey Mulligan, is visited by her former boss and lover, Tom Sargent, played by Bill Nye, whose wife has recently died. As the night goes on, the two try to rekindle their love affair, but find they are locked in a battle between their contradictory principles and their reciprocated lust. Previews began on March 13th and it opened officially on April 2nd. This Is Our Youth is set in New York City in 1982. It depicts 48 hours in the life of Warren, played by Michael Cera, who has just stolen $15,000 from his father, Dennis, Warren's drug dealer, and Jessica, an astute young woman whom Warren desires. Previews began August 18th, it opened September 11th, and closed on January 4th. Last, but certainly not least, we have You Can't Take It With You. Kaufman and Hart's classic comedy follows the eccentric Sycamore family who host their youngest daughter's fiancé and his traditional parents for dinner. This production starred James Earl Jones and began previews on August 26th, opened September 28th, and closed February 22nd. So those are the plays eligible for nomination at this year's Tony Awards. I know, there's a lot, and they all sound amazing. But I'm probably most excited for The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Honestly, it looks beautiful and the story sounds amazing, and my younger sister was lucky enough to see it when she studied abroad in London last year and said it was one of the best pieces of theater she's ever seen. But let me know which one of these plays is your favorite or which one you're most excited for down in the comments below. Like this video if you liked it and subscribe to me for more theater related videos.